Ed. Okay. Ed, we're awesome. Great. Well, this was my second one. Low system resources. Is that showing up? No, it's not. No. This was my second one. Jenny and I went to Atlanta a few years ago, and that was a blast. We really had a good time. There were this particular one. Let's see if I can do this here. First of all, my first takeaway was it gets hot in Houston. I mean, it really gets hot. I had been there when I was in the FBI. I had 6 weeks there as the acting special agent in charge, while the other, the real SAC was doing something someplace else. And I learned then that it was hot, but I had forgotten just how hot it was. It's a hot city. It was interesting though, because even though this one had 11,000 people in attendance, one in Atlanta had 33,000 people in attendance. This one still seemed big though. I don't know if it's because the venue was a little bit smaller, but a third of the people were there. So Rotary is probably going to lose some money as a result of this. They had an interesting vaccination protocol. Before you could go into the convention center, you had to upload your vaccination card, your proof of vaccination, and then they compared that with your registration before they would allow you to enter the convention. Numerous hotels, of course, were utilized. My hotel was about 0.8 of a mile away from the convention venue. I made the mistake of trying to walk there to get registered, and I got there fine, but by the time I left, it was so hot, I was dead by the time I got back to the hotel. Smaller crowds. Yeah, pretty much. House of Friendship was great. They were sold out to all of the vendors who showed up. And there were 3 general sessions, which I think is normal, running from 10 a.m. to noon. We had breakout sessions that followed in the afternoon. This was, you can see that picture of a banner that was hung between the convention center and a hotel that was right across the street. This was a vehicle that was in the House of Friendship that folks were using to demonstrate their creativity by writing different messages on it. This was a gentleman who was selling clock faces for different purposes. Our current district governor, Nico, was talking to him. They're seriously considering getting some kind of a clock face for the town of Waxhaw. And he said that for $4,000, you too could have something like this. Exactly. This is a picture of one of the mini booths that were there. This one dealt with peace and fellowship. I want to talk a little bit about the general session highlights. Our current president, excuse me, Shaker, kicked off things. He greeted everyone at the General Assembly on Monday. He was accompanied by his wife, Rashi, and their grandson. And he gave a brief recap of the year. Talked about all the things that had happened, some of the accomplishments that Rotary International had been responsible for. And he thanked incoming President Jennifer for continuing to emphasize his initiative of empowering women and girls. We also had a very cool message from 2 astronauts that are currently on the International Space Station. It was obviously recorded, but they welcomed us to Houston and to Rotary, and they tied in our messaging, what we do around peace. And they said that they welcomed, of course, any groups, any organizations that emphasized peace. So that was cool. There's a really nice video of them that I won't try to share.
Well, they will have to.
Okay.
Are there any aliens, like, Photobomb.
There were lots of aliens at that convention. Yes, yes. Most of them, however, were also Rotarians. No, there's just a lot of different people. You know, obviously, I think one of the coolest things about going to a convention is seeing people from all around the world with their costumes, clothing from their countries. The Africa contingent was resplendent, but so were delegations from Korea and Taiwan. I mean, they were the cultural aspects were fantastic. People from Ukraine were amazing, and there were a lot of them from Ukraine. We had the national anthem performed by some guy, Sundance, and he did a really good job. I never heard of him, but apparently he's been on one of those musical shows, musical contests, did a great job. And then we had this thing called the Parade of Flags. And if you've ever been to a Rotary convention and you've seen the Parade of Flags, it is incredibly special. Every nation that Rotary has a club in is represented. And they bring each flag out, and there's polite applause for each of the flags. One of the things that was really interesting is that they said Rotary has representatives from more countries, over 200 countries, more representatives than they do in the United Nations, which is pretty incredible. And I was really, as the flags were being brought out, I was talking to someone else and I said, it's going to be interesting to see what the reaction is to Russia when the Russian flag was brought out. I knew what the reaction to Ukraine was going to be. That one was easy. But I think it's a testament to Rotary that when the Russian flag was introduced, there were no boos whatsoever. There was limited, tepid, polite applause from about 2 people, but there were no boos. And I thought that is really a testament to Rotarians who understand that it's not the people of Russia that we have a beef with. Most of the people there are fine, or victims, yep. But when Ukraine came out, it was off the hook. They had a standing ovation from about 10,000 Rotarians in that convention center that lasted for a full minute. It was incredible. There was even more applause when they were done with the Parade of Flags, and the master of ceremony said, let's give it up for Ukraine again, and people did. Parade of Flags here. John Huco's message was especially interesting. John Huco, if you don't know it, is the CEO, COO of Rotary. He's just a very bright and incredibly passionate man who was actually born, I believe, in Kiev, Ukraine. So he's got that tie. I love him too because he spent some time in Michigan. So go blue. He began by saying that on July 1st, we were focused as an organization on COVID, but never dreamed that we would still be concerned about COVID 1 year later, but also dealing with so many other issues, a humanitarian crisis, a war in Ukraine, numerous environmental disasters. He shared with us that as of April 30th, 2022, more than $13 million has been raised for disaster response relief efforts. And 74 grants have been approved thus far, many of those for humanitarian assistance in Ukraine. He talked about specific clubs taking extraordinary steps in addressing our areas of focus. In Guyana, he mentioned that members of the Rotary Club of Demerara drew on 3 decades of experience fighting disease in order to deliver COVID-19 vaccines to vulnerable indigenous communities. The Interact Club of Valmiki, Nepal provided 400 chicks, baby chicks to 40 families to help them start their own small businesses and develop skills that can improve the local economic prospects of that community. That was an Interact Club, which was pretty cool. 130 Rotary Peace Fellows began their studies in the past year at our 7 Rotary Peace Centers. And then he talked a little bit about some of our partnerships, our work with the Global Partnership for Education, focused on increasing girls' participation in school. We celebrated our official partnership with Shelterbox, which we renewed this year. And that's an organization that we've worked with for more than 20 years, providing more than 2 million people with emergency shelter, essential items, and training. And he, of course, mentioned that ending polio remains our primary goal, one of our primary goals, and our partners in the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. With cases caused by the wild polio virus at their lowest level, we have an unprecedented opportunity to stop the transmission of disease by accelerating our immunization efforts. He talked about growing Rotary. As of April 30th, we have added 168,460 new members to Rotary. We've had 1,780 new clubs that have been chartered. This is actually one of the first years in which we're going to see a net growth in population, in our Rotary population, as opposed to one that's diminished. He also talked about a new membership society for new member sponsors. They're going to start recognizing Rotarians who've brought in 25 or more members. He talked about removing barriers to inclusion and the adoption of a new DEI code of conduct by the Board of Governors. He talked about Rotaract and the decision this year to include Rotaract clubs as a distinct membership type, which will help Rotary grow in the future. One of the things we know is that only 4% of current Rotaractors have ever become Rotarians. And shame on us for not doing what we should. 4%. That is absolutely insane. Yep. Same with our youth exchange students. Very few of them go on to become Rotarians. Same with our RILA kids and our SFTL kids. Very few of them go on to become Rotarians. And I think it's because we don't do a very good job of staying connected with them. You know, once they go through a program or an exchange, we kind of lose track and we don't do very good follow-up. It truly is. And I think it's one that we obviously have room for improvement on. Yeah, sure.
Inclusion.
Yep.
So a lot of times inclusion, talking about diversity and inclusion.
Yep. DE&I.
The barriers to Rotary a lot of times are financial.
Yep.
So what is he doing about that? Because that's, I think, probably the biggest deterrent of people is the financial piece. But Rotary International keeps charging us for magazines, and so yep. What is there? Did anyone sort of challenge it? But
no.
Was there any additional talk about how they're addressing it?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Kelly's question was, if you didn't hear it, was Rotary is literally increasing dues right in front of us. That came out of the recent Council on Legislation. But we're also saying that we want to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Kelly mentioned, rightfully so, that one of the barriers to joining clubs, any club, but Rotary clubs in this case, is a financial one. People say that, it's only if you skip lunch or whatever, $20 a month isn't that much, but that really is very relative. It depends on your income situation. And it's a question that we've actually teed up with our current district governor leadership chain. It's one that we're actually, our DEI committee is trying to find examples from other clubs that are looking at this problem as well, because it is a problem and it will be a barrier to inclusion. So we know individual clubs sometimes offer different membership programs, different scholarships, perhaps, where you can give people a reduced price for admission, but we're looking for something a little bit more systemic in how we address this. I've actually had a discussion with our membership people on whether or not we're emphasizing the wrong thing. And it's a question that I think Rotary leadership is going to have to consider at some point in the future. We seem to be focused on quantity more than anything else. We seem to be focused on numbers, growing Rotary, and that's all good. The more we grow, the more we can do. But I'm wondering if at some point with participation in service organizations and any really organized activity, you look at churches, membership is going down. People are not joining like they did before. So not only do we have to be creative in identifying ways for people to become more active, I think we've got to be really flexible on terms of our dues structures and how we actively recruit people, how we retain people. And I think a lot of that is due to engagement. The more we can retain, the more we can engage, the more we can retain. So it's a huge problem, Kelly, but one that we're very much aware of and sensitive to. And unfortunately, we don't have any good answers right now. There you go. Plan on, please. We need all the help we can get. Getting back to Rotary Act, members of Rotary Act can also now be appointed to district committees. There's a club in Denmark where the first Rotary actor in this particular club was named as the Rotary Public Image Coordinator for the district, which is pretty cool. Starting in 22-23, Rotary Act clubs can be one of the sponsors of a global grant, and Rotary Act clubs can also receive district grant funding. Yeah, because a lot of people are opposed to that, since Rotary Act dues are only $5 a year for university students and $8 for community-based Rotary Act organizations. So a lot of people are saying, hey, time out. Wait a minute. They're still working on that. Yep. For this year, yes. Yep. So then we heard from John Germ. He's our foundation chair. He talked a little bit about polio cases in the remaining wild polio endemic countries. Afghanistan and Pakistan are at their lowest level in history. Talked about Rotary needing to raise $50 million each year for polio eradication. Let's see, I'm missing something here. So this is a picture of President Shaker. This is a picture of the general session. That's a lady from the Korean delegation. This was an interesting guy. His name is Charles Duke. He was an Apollo astronaut. He's either a brigadier general or a major general, retired from the Air Force now. But they were the backup crew for Apollo 13. And he talked about, he talked about what they had to do when Apollo 13 was on the fritz. And the whole crew came in at about 11:30 the night they found out. And they are the ones who actually mocked up and went through some of the processes, the air filtration system. They actually tried it out first on items that could be made from within the command module of Apollo 13. And they were able to jury rig a filtration system and try it out on this backup crew before they employed it on Apollo 13. But Charles Duke, just a great American, and told stories about teamwork and about what it takes to succeed and how they came together. Nobody did it for personal edification or personal glory. This was about the team. And he was a very, very effective speaker. He also talked about how quickly things can change. He said his father was born in 1907. And his father grew up with marveling at the exploits of the Wright brothers. But his father, who passed away in 1984, I believe, also saw man land on the moon. And he said, when you think about that small snippet of time, how quickly things can change, it was just miraculous. So great speaker. Oops-a-doodly. This was a picture of his Apollo crew that was up. This was a picture of the two people in the space station who gave us about a minute and a half greeting from way above, but very cool.
Were they American or were they?
Yeah, they were both American. Yeah.
Kind of
But multiple countries. Yeah. I want to say 30 plus countries have participated in that. It's really amazing. So let's see. Oh, John Jerem said also that Rotary made another contribution in our commitment to peace, approving more than 1,000 global district and disaster response grants to fulfill the needs of thousands around the world. So, yes, ma'am.
What were the sentiments, like what were people most concerned about or most excited about, like amongst the people who were just there? Like not necessarily speakers, but like what were the conversations that were, you know, the most concerning or most, you know, exciting?
Yeah, so Kelly's question was, what were the conversations that were that seemed to be most popular with the people that were in attendance? What were people talking about? And without a doubt, it was just being able to meet in person. It was being able to see people, to have this convention that we haven't had in 3 years, but just to be able to see people and to be out and to be able to enjoy one another and to learn what's going on in other parts of the world. I think that was, people were just excited to be there.
So there wasn't any polling of clubs?
No,
like
no, nope, none of that. One of the things I wanted to do here is, this was during the parade of flags. That was the Ukraine flag. That's John Hugo there. And I wanted to spend a little bit talking about my special moment. So on day 2 of the convention, try to get there as early as you can. They start at 10 o'clock, but people actually start filtering in at about 9 o'clock to get seats because they do fill up quickly, the ones at the front. So Christine Cipriano, for those of you who don't know her, is the executive secretary, but also a member of the Charlotte Rotary Club. And Christine was there. She is an amazing woman. Yeah, I absolutely love Christine. She's got a heart of gold. And she showed up, she snagged 8 seats for us. And she introduced me. She said, oh, by the way, the person who's going to be sitting behind you is a woman named Dr. Sylvia Whitlock. Does that name do anything for anybody? Yeah, no cheating. Yeah, see, you were doing the right thing. You were doing the right thing. Well, I had heard of the name. I couldn't remember in what context. So Christine said, she's the first woman in Rotary. What? Get out of here. So I was like a kid in a candy store, because for me, being able to meet someone of this stature, especially considering that she's a teacher and a humanitarian and just an all-around great person. She gave me the grace that I asked for, because I stumbled over my words, I'm sure, when I introduced myself, and she allowed me to take a picture with her. I wrote a brief article for John Tabor about this too. And this was me meeting Dr. Whitlock. So it was, right? I was thrilled. I was just thrilled. And she was very tolerant, let's put it that way. Yes, she's African American, but I've done a little bit of research. She's known as being the first woman. She actually was not the very first woman. There were several others in that particular club. And this was the Rotary Club of Duarte, California. Small club, maybe 15, 20 members at that time. And they recruited her and several other women to their club because they were doing wonderful things in the community. And Rotary had a rule that said no women allowed. So this club was founded in 1952. When they celebrated their 25th anniversary in 1977, a Rotary representative showed up and he wanted to meet all of the Rotarians. So Dr. Whitlock and her 3 or 4 compatriots stood up, they were introduced, and he was aghast. He was like, what? You can't have women in this club. The way they got around it, and the way Rotary International never knew that they were women, is when they sent in their member information, they just used their first initials and their last names. So they never knew. So she was just S. Whitlock. And her fellow female members were the same thing. Well, Rotary said they took a vote. They had all of their leadership take a vote on whether or not this club should stay a Rotary club. And the vote was 1,000 to 37 or 39 that they in effect be excommunicated. So they were. Wow. Duarte officially kicked out of Rotary International. But because these guys are so cool, they took that as a badge of honor, and they actually changed their name. They were no longer a Rotary Club, but they changed their name to the ex-Rotary Club of Duarte, California. And they had like X's put over everything. It was amazing. They eventually took the Rotary International to court, I believe in 1986. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, Rotary International, you cannot have rules that prohibit people,
based
women.
On gender.
Yeah, yes. Thank you for that voice from above. Right. So it was, they immediately reversed themselves. They were admitted back into Rotary International, and Sylvia did become in 1987 for certain the first female president of any Rotary club in the world, in America, say that. But it was just remarkable having an opportunity to meet her, to talk to her about her life story. She's a very self-effacing, humble person with a heart of gold. I'm not sure. I believe it's a PhD, but don't quote me on that.
Kevin, you look like a child at Christmas morning in that picture.
What was that?
I say you look like a child in Christmas morning behind a tree.
I felt like a child. I felt like a child. Like I said, she was very, very tolerant of me during this time. And I was only about one of 300 people that were trying to get a picture with her. We need to say that. Oh my God, yeah. I just felt like she should have actually been up on the dais, because when you consider that our theme this year was empowering women and girls, and you know, with President Jennifer's emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion, it seemed to me like this woman should be like, she's the poster child for Rotary. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. I just loved it. So anyway, that was my Rotary moment, and that's the story I submitted to John Tabor for the newsletter. He's going to do a special one. This is a picture of most of the people that were in attendance from our district. So we were having dinner at some restaurant, Papado's or something like that. And we just got everybody together for the one and only district picture that we were able to take. Of course, the convention closed with Jennifer Jones on day 3, giving her message. It was a message of inspiration. Jennifer said, you know, in order to live in the kind of society that you want, you have to help build it. And that is so true. I think as we go forward in not only the upcoming Rotary year, but in years to come, this is a message, a plea, if you will, an ask for us to become more engaged in Rotary, more engaged in our clubs, more engaged in everything that the clubs are doing to make our communities better. And of course, she said that if you want responsible members, you need to give them responsibilities. And I think that's so true. And I want to take just 1 minute to personally recognize Kelly and Jenny, who have done, I think, a wonderful job in getting us more engaged in our activities. Jenny, I know, has been out working very diligently to identify people for committees, but that's what it's all about. 1 or 2 people can't do all of the work. We need.
Unless you're a mom.
Yes, right. We need as many hands on board as possible. So a strong message from President Jennifer, and just challenging us to imagine what we can be in the years ahead. So that was it. I'll take any other questions y'all might have. Yes. Principal in an elementary school, Dr. Whitlock. And also received a second master's. So thank you, Barbara. Totally. Eric.
Kevin,
Yes.
You mentioned the great response that Ukrainian delegation flag got. Was there any mention of the extent to which clubs in Ukraine have been able to continue to meet and or serve during these last months?
That actually came, Eric's question was there any information at the convention about how the clubs in Ukraine are continuing to function, if they are in fact continuing to function?
Or joining the clubs in Poland if they've been evacuated Poland.
Or joining clubs in Poland. But I'll tell you, it was interesting. Just a few days before this, I think it was the Wednesday before I left for the convention, there was a Zoom meeting that featured the founding president of the Rotary Club of Kiev, and she shared with everybody that was in on that call that Rotary has actually grown its presence in Ukraine since the beginning of the war. They've actually chartered 3 additional clubs in Ukraine since the beginning of the war. So the participation, the engagement has just gotten stronger. They've grown their membership as well. So it's just been, one of the people on that call, I believe, asked the question, how did COVID-19 impact y'all? And he was the guy who, he said, you know, he said, we just kind of forgot about COVID after we started being attacked. So it just, you could see even in his response that he had not given COVID much thought at all. That was not a priority for him. But to your question, Eric, the membership there is growing, club presence is growing. Yes. Yes. Yes, Rotary has provided opportunities for clubs to participate in a grant process for different activities. They mentioned, in fact, that they had received a number of generators from Rotary, almost 300, I believe, from clubs that have been approved for projects. They've received a lot of first responder equipment. And in fact, the Global Impact Club of our district here recently was approved for a $25,000 grant that will provide first aid equipment to people in Poland who are helping to repair, to rehab Ukrainians who have been hurt in the war, since they've had such an influx there. But yes, they have provided a number of items and a lot of funding for different activities. And it's still ongoing. Yes. I think it was actually in our last Dilworthian, not this current one, but I think I did a small article on that in the issue before that. Yep, yep.
When was Rotary, ladies being Rotary final?
It was in the 86, I believe, when the Supreme Court said, yeah, came down with their decision. Howard's talking about when he joined Rotary in 1990, was it? That there were 2 or 3 ladies in Rotary at that point. You.
In the 60s and 70s, which my father is a Rotarian, their club in Northeast North Carolina had an auxiliary known as the Wives of Rotary.
Yes.
They still have those.
They met, and they actually probably did more of the work while the guys just sat in the back room to look the rest of it.
Right. Hugh Lewis shared with us that as a child, and he would go to Rotary meetings with his dad, there were a group of women at that time who were more of an auxiliary unit of the Rotary Club. Was that here in Charlotte, Hugh?
No, that was in Northeast North Carolina.
Okay, Northeastern North Carolina. Wonderful.
Place called Murfreesboro.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Are there any questions online here? Let me see. Jenny has left. I'm going to check the chat real quick. No questions there. All right, super. Thank you, everybody. I sure appreciate your time and attention. Oh, yeah, Melbourne.
Is it Melbourne?
Yes. And really, the registration fee is reduced until June the 12th.
I've lost,
That's not reduced.
I've lost the, there you go.
And
Okay.
people are already signing up. We've got at least a half dozen people from our district who are signing up.
All right, there we are. So thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
You know, this is just a personal thought, but I don't know how, there's a lot of like imagine Rotary, but I don't really see us doing a lot of imagining. You know what I mean? Like it's mostly people just telling us what their goals are. And I would just love to see us as a club. Actually, what does it look like? What does the future look like? And how do we want to build it? And then that's what we put our efforts and, monetary funds into, we focus it there. So anyway, club challenge. Because you guys love to take surveys. All right. So that is, what's that? Jim hits, sorry, I just turned the chat down. We, the association serving Alto Quema, are applying for a grant from the Inner Wheel, the Ladies Club of Zurich, Switzerland. Cool. Jim Hintz, can you take yourself off of mute and tell us why are you applying for? Why is your from Zurich? Like what's that all about?
Yes. We're applying because they have some money.
That's a good reason.
Yeah. Well,
Follow the money.
okay, it's a long story. There was a young woman from Switzerland who came to Alto Quema and worked with Father Alex. This must be 20 years ago. She stayed for 6 months or a year. And at the end of that stay, her mother came and visited. And she fell in love with the place as well. and she's stayed in touch with us ever since. And she's now going to be the president of the Inner Wheel Club of Zurich, and she's invited us to apply for a grant. I've been to Zurich and met this lady.
Very cool. Well, let us know how it goes. We'll cheer you
We
on.
will.
So if everyone in the room could put their coins and change into the buckets, pass them forward, and Barbara in the room. Barbara in the room, not Barbara. Sorry, Barbara Horseman, you couldn't do this. Because you got Kevin the information he needed and the question that I asked, would you mind picking the winner of the raffle, please? And then as soon as this is done, y'all, we will do the 5-way test and adjourn for the day. On time.
Yeah. That's the best way to do it.
And Barbara, you just need to read the last, just read the last 4 digits. Can you see it? Smack him.
Three. Ready? 334497.
Right here.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, winner, chicken dinner, Angie. All right, if everyone in the room could stand for our 5-way test and those online could join us. Of all the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, will it be fun? Ding, ding, ding. Here, I actually have the bell today, so. Everybody online, great to see you guys. Thanks so much for being here. Quanta, do you have a question or comment before we go? You got your little yellow hand up. Or Quanta, put it in the chat if you want. Taylor, I'll see you soon. Jim Stump, good to see you, my friend.